All right, quick review. The Bible is our authority. This book is authored by God for us, His message to us. Uh, Bible authored by God. Different people wrote it, but God directed them to write exactly what He wanted written. So this is God's message to us. And then another big thing is following the genealogies in this, because there is genealogy from Adam, the first man, all the way to Christ. So looking at those genealogies, you get about a world that is about 6,000 years old. Not millions of years old, not billions of years old, but 6,000 years old. And what we want to remember, as the world around us is going to tell us lots of different things about this world and how old the world is, and about evolution and all that, that no people were there at the beginning of the world. God alone was there. God alone existed before anything was created, and everything that exists, whether in the seen realm or the unseen realm, was created by God. Only God is eternal. So as we continue in the story of creation, this is God's eyewitness account of creation. He's the only one that was there. He's the only one who saw what happened, and he tells us what happened in his word. Charles Darwin came along thousands of years later, almost 6,000 years later, and then he takes a look at the world and says, "Oh, I think this is what happened at the beginning of the world," and yada yada yada. He wasn't there. It's a wild guess. God was there. This is his eyewitness account. And then, as we look at creation, the big point with creation is that it reveals to us through creation, through how God created, characteristics of God. It shows us who God is and a bit about God's character. So God, he spoke things into existence. That's what we saw last time. We'll see more of that tonight. He spoke and it came into existence. He didn't need any materials, any tools. He didn't need any magic wand, any magic pixie dust. He didn't need anything. He spoke and things came into existence. It points to God's power, his knowledge, his supreme authority that he has over everything. Also shows us he's a God of love and care for us. So this world that he's creating, it's not for him. He doesn't need anything. He's not dependent on anything. This world that he created is for us. So he's thinking about us as he creates this world, and he gives it such beauty and such variety and complexity. And it's all to show his awesome power, his glory, but also shows his love and care for us. He's a generous and loving God. All right, let's continue on in the account of creation. In Genesis chapter 1, I'm going to read about the fourth day of creation. Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 19. Then God said, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years. Let these lights in the sky shine down on the earth." And that is what happened. God made two great lights, the larger one to govern the day, and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set these lights in the sky to light the earth, to govern the day and night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the fourth day. So God simply speaks, and the sun and moon and stars come into existence. This is something only God can do. No other beings, whether spiritual beings or humanity or things on this earth, animals, whatever, nothing else can create like that. Like if you and I are going to create something, we need all the materials. We also need the know-how, maybe an instruction booklet or some kind of experience, knowledge in that to be able to create something. We couldn't walk into a dark cave, back of the cave, completely pitch black, can't see a thing. If we don't have a flashlight with us or some form of light, like we're in trouble. We can't speak light into existence, but God can. He's the only one who can, and he speaks. Sun, moon, and stars come into existence. Another thing we mentioned on day one, when God said, "Let there be light," that light was created day one, but the sun, moon, and the stars weren't created till day 4. And we already see from day 1 that light and darkness were separated, that there is morning and evening on day 1. And so we see that this is already, God is shaping the functioning world, a functioning universe. And so I think that this light he creates on day one, he creates light, all the light we see today, light from sun, moon, and stars, like that was already created to create some other light, then he removed 3 days later. Like that doesn't even make sense to me. Like these stars, it takes millions of years for the light to get here. Well, the universe isn't millions of years old. God put that light into place first, and now on day 4, he creates the stars and the sun that we see as giving off that light. But God is the one who created the light, put things into place, put the sun, moon, and stars in place, and it just shows the awesome power of God. And he put everything into place, and he is sustaining its existence. And yeah, again, just showing the awesome power of God. So the whole universe was created so it was fully functioning in the way God intended it should throughout all time. It did not take many light years for the light from the heavenly bodies to reach Earth. Their light was visible from planet Earth the moment God created them. All right, also, as we're talking about the sun, moon, and stars, it shows us that God is a God of order. He made the sun, moon, and stars to follow an orderly pattern. There's never been a day in our life when the sun has not followed its course, when the moon followed its course. Calendars and tidal charts are made years in advance because the movements and position of the moon, earth, and sun are completely predictable. This doesn't happen by chance. It was designed that way by God. So God is a God of order. He put these things into place, and as he put them into place, like the order he gave them, what's happening is, it's happening today. There's order in this world. It's not chaos. It's not random. There's order to it. Now think about this. All of our existence on Earth relies on the consistency of the sunrise and the sunset, the angle of the axis on which the world pivots, the speed at which it spins on that pivot, and its rotation around the sun. If it were off the smallest amount, we would cease to exist. So we have a God who is orderly, purposeful, and faithful. Our very existence rests in that. We have an amazing God who created an amazing universe, and he created it for you and I, with us in mind, creating a beautiful world for us. Now, one last point about this before we move on. Universe is a very vast place. Yet God, in a moment, spoke and put the sun, moon, and stars into place. Those stars that are billions of light years away. Ridiculous amount of space, really. This universe that we live in, it might be infinitely large. We don't know. There is no end to this universe. Ridiculous amount of space, yet God did not have to travel way the heck out there to put the stars into place. One, he's all powerful. He spoke and the stars came into being. Two, God exists everywhere. He is everywhere. Let's look at Psalm 104:19. Psalm 104:19 says, well, let's talk about the order. You made the moon to mark the seasons, and the sun knows when to set. So, sorry, that verse is back about law and order again. I'm off in my notes. What we see from Scripture, it says God is everywhere. So he doesn't have to travel out to the farthest reaches of the universe to place the stars into place. He's already there. He exists everywhere. And also, by simply speaking, he brought the stars into existence. All right, let's move on. Oh, there we go. Jeremiah 23:23 and 24. My God, near at hand and not a God far off, do I not fill heaven and earth? Here's a verse pointing to God being everywhere. A quick note about that. God is everywhere, but everything is not a part of God. God is a distinct person, a distinct being, separate from the creation that he created, separate from the universe that he created. So while he is everywhere, not everything is not a part of God. We're not all part of God. God is not in everything. He simply is everywhere, sees everything, knows everything. All right, let's go on. 5th day. I'm going to read Genesis chapter 1. All right, back to the beginning here. Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 through 23. Then God said, let the water swarm with fish and other life. Let the skies be filled with birds of every kind. So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that scurries and swarms in the water, and every sort of bird, each producing offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply. Let the fish fill the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the fifth day. Again, God spoke, and the waters were filled with living creatures, and the sky with birds. And God created such variety, such beauty in the marine life and with the birds. Think about it. God could create one bird. There could be one bird, every bird we see the same kind of bird. No, he created countless. Oh, it's probably not countless. Somebody can count it. I haven't counted. There are many different kinds of birds, different shapes and sizes, different colors, different noises, sounds they make. Think about all the different birds, the songs they sing. It's a beautiful world that God created with amazing variety. Again, not for God, but for us, for you and I. It shows his power. Excuse me. Shows his imagination and shows his care for us. Same thing with the animals in the sea. Oh my goodness, have you ever been snorkeling or deep sea diving or anything where you've gotten just a glimpse of sea life, of life in the ocean, life in the sea, the different animals, the different beauty there? It is absolutely amazing. The more man searches the ocean depths and the remote places of the earth, the more kinds of marine life and birds are discovered. He created an awesome variety for your enjoyment and my enjoyment, showing his creative wisdom and power and his love for us. All right, a key phrase in these verses I just read, let me look at it again. God created great sea creatures and every living thing that scurries and swarms in the water, every sort of bird, each producing offspring of the same kind. This is a key phrase, according to its kind. This is repeated 10 times in the first chapter of Genesis. The DNA of each organism was created and programmed by God, so it can only guide in the reproduction of the same kind. Although great variations within each kind are possible, the evolution of new kinds is impossible. Only God can create living creatures, and God created them in their distinct classes, in their distinct categories by their kind. There is no room for evolution here. One, God speaks, they come into existence. It's not over millions of years through trial and error, through death and life and mutations and adaptability. No, God spoke, animals came into being by their own kinds, and we see that today in the animal kingdom. We'll talk about animals the next lesson, but it's the same thing. There are distinct kinds. Now there are adaptations within kinds. God created these beings, animals, with the ability to adapt a bit. It's an awesome thing, showing the power of God. And we have all these different kinds. Within kinds, you have different things happen. Things can within kinds, different species within a kind, within a category. Mate, and we get some different animals there, but it's still all within their kinds. There's distinct kinds. There's not this random infinite variety of things. Like if you think evolution, you're going to think, okay, it's just constantly, everything's just changing, evolving, changing, and it's not really going to have distinct categories, separating lines between different things. They're all just going to be mutating in every different direction and have this mess without distinct lines across kinds of animals, fish, marine life, birds. But there are distinct kinds. We see that today, distinct categories, and in those categories, when they have offspring, well, guess what? It's the same thing. It's the same as mom and dad. And God created animals like that. All right, one more thing, and then we'll move on to the next point. Only God can create living creatures. We humans cannot create one living creature, one living common sparrow from absolutely nothing. We can't. We are unable to do that. Even the tiniest, most ordinary creatures are God's creation and are incredibly complex. All right, this is a quote from the book Evolution, A Theory in Crisis by Michael Denton. In the book it says, molecular biology has shown that even the simplest of all living systems on Earth today, bacterial cells, are exceedingly complex. Although the tiniest bacterial cells are incredibly small, each is in effect a veritable micro-miniaturized factory containing thousands of exquisitely designed pieces of intricate molecular machinery, made up altogether of 100,000 million atoms, far more complicated than any machine built by man and absolutely without parallel in the non-living world. God is all-powerful and made everything by his own great power and understanding. Think about God's creativity and skill as the master designer, how great his infinite knowledge, wisdom, and power. All right, that was day 5. Let's go to day 6. I'm going to read Genesis 1, 24 and 25. Then God said, "Let the earth produce every sort of animal, each producing offspring of the same kind." Again, same kind. Livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, and wild animals. And that is what happened. God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, and small animals, each able to produce offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. Again, God created an innumerable, huge variety of animals. He created each kind with unique characteristics with the capability of producing only other animals of its own kind. Within each kind, there's much variation. Think about all the different dogs we have today and breeding different dogs. You have different things. We still have dogs. You have this kind, you have this category of dogs. There's much variation within that category, but there's no changing of kinds. All this breeding of dogs, they're still dogs. They haven't changed. And guess what? You take dogs and all the different things that fall in the category of dogs, and dogs like wolves, same category. We take them and breed and get all sorts of different things. We're still in the kind of dogs. You can't take dogs and breed them with something else. You can't breed dogs with cats. You can't breed dogs with birds. There are separate, distinct kinds, and God designed it that way. Let's see, it ends here, verses 24 and 25 that I just read. After God creates the animals, the last sentence is, God saw that it was good. God is perfect and holy, all-powerful. He doesn't mess up when he creates. Everything he made was perfect and good. There was no evil in the world. The animals were all good. There was no angry animals, violent animals, animals devouring other animals. There was no poisonous snakes, stinging wasps, devouring lions, those type of things. It was a perfect world. There was animals, but they all got along in unity with each other, in harmony with the world, with each other, because it was a perfect world made by a perfect God. All right, we're going to stop there with the first lesson, but the final point is this. This amazing universe that God created reflects the work of the master designer. Daily, we're surrounded with evidence of God's existence, his infinite power, knowledge, love, orderliness, and goodness. Everything we see points to a creator God, points to a master designer showing his imagination, his power. We see the amazing complexity in this world, the amazing variety in this world, and it shows that we have an awesome God. Romans 1:20 says, "Since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead." We should all notice the clear evidences of the divine creator's hand in all we see around us. This world and everything in it should cause us to acknowledge him as God, the almighty creator of all things. And while we can see some attributes of God in the world around us that points us to God, still yet we can know God more by diving into the book that he gave us. And so we're going to continue going through his word, the book that he authored, his message to us as we go forward here. And that is the end of that lesson.